Welcome to Prose from the Underground, coming to you from my basement in northern Michigan, where I read, write, think, and say things, and sometimes, like tonight, I'm lucky enough to talk with someone directly. I'm bringing in a friend of mine, Mary Kay Zuravleff, who's a great writer. She has 3 novels in the world, all of which should be studied closely. Her 3rd novel I mentioned in the first episode. It's called Man Alive, and it's driven, I believe, by a yearning for normal. The characters are struggling to get back to the life they had before the inciting incident or the crisis, which happens right out of the gate in the first few pages. I asked her to talk about that, the process, the decision-making, what helped her to get that inciting incident so well placed right out of the gate. Here's what she said.
Well, I'm so glad to be here, and I am so delighted to be talking to you. And you and I have talked a lot about what makes the novel work and how on earth they tick. So for this book, I had the sentence in my head. The main character is a pediatric psychopharmacologist, and it was time to start a new book. And what came into my head was a pediatric psychopharmacologist is hit by lightning, and all he wants to do is barbecue. Start. So I thought maybe it would be a short story. And, premise, you and I love wacky premise, inventive premise, really strange. And then, of course, it became more complicated when he, striving not to necessarily be normal, he likes his new ecstatic state. He likes where this took him. And so he's beginning to think about leaving the family. How much can you change and stay in a family? So it's about that family ecosystem. They want him back to normal. They want what they had, and it sends them all flying. So I went back to my own book because you had said to me the other day, first page, right? And I thought, yeah, close to first page. I mean, it's in the very first pages. And the reason I couldn't remember is because I kept shifting it. I started with the lightning, and the problem with that, as you can imagine, is if you want to say to the audience, the family wants to return to what? We never saw the family. And I wanted it to hit and move forward. I didn't want to go 12 years ago, they were this kind of family, or, last year at this time. I wanted it to start with that and send them into the stratosphere. So then the challenge was calibrating where the lightning should hit so that you had a glimpse of them. And I would have to yearn for that, to use your word.
Yeah. Beautiful. So you get a glimpse of that. And I won't ask you to count pages, but it is an incredibly brief but dense glimpse. Is it fair to say?
Yeah. So they're at the beach. It's their last dinner to have at the beach before you pack up everything and go home. And 2 twins go off to college, and the youngest child, it's time to take the SAT. And so family dynamics in that last dinner, teasing and noodling each other, and all a list of all the errands that has to be done. And he's hit by lightning and putting a coin into the parking meter. Yeah. So everything changes. And as this one friend of mine said, I can sum up your novel in one phrase: change for a quarter.
Beautiful. Oh, yeah. And that's so key. And your novel, I mean, it's a lengthy novel. And a writer might wonder, well, what in the heck are you going to do after the crisis happens, right out of the gate? Well, the whole beauty of it is the long, slow, painful process of trying to get back to pre-lightning life.
Well, and I was thinking so much, I've so enjoyed your podcast, and I've been thinking about yearning as the great pinnacle. And I was thinking how, for me, in my books, in order to get enough drama for me, I've had the yearning with a competitive yearning. So he does not want to go back to normal. And the joy of the book was writing those where the lightning took him. The danger was staying there too long. But that was just a trip to write that kind of language and that kind of electrical storm in his head. Yeah. Meanwhile, the rest of the family, we need you on Earth.
I think I will bring this up one more time in another episode, but one of the things I realized halfway-ish through Man Alive is that if he is protagonist, he's also the antagonist. And of course,
Oh, I
the
love that.
protagonist is there are many in the because it's a family story, but he becomes the problem, and it's just a fantastic narrative issue, I think, to have him become the problem itself. We don't hate him or anything, but we're just frustrated
Oh,
because
I'm so glad you said that, because the other thing I love about a novel, and when you get good dialogue, the same thing happens. We're not just talking at each other. We're hearing each other and being changed by listening, is being changed by what the person says to you. And so in this novel, it's not just get back to your desk and start prescribing medications like you used to. It's what can this family do to keep him in their orbit, or are they going to lose him? And then there's each person sort of is hit by the lightning. So then, and we can have this conversation now or not, making decisions for your book in which every decision drives the point home. So what's the point of view going to be? What's the verb tense going to be?
Yep. Yeah. And in fact, I've said this to other folks, and it's something that you said with no concession. You said that every page of a novel has to feel like the rest of the novel. In other words, you should be able to sense what the ongoing tension is throughout, which is a really intimidating and terrible thing to tell people who haven't yet gotten through their novel, because it makes it really intense. But it works out when the novel is doing what it should do. You really can do that. You can flip open a trilogy like the Cromwell trilogy and go, yep, that's what's happening.
Yeah. And I remember saying to a friend that my challenge was that every time someone spoke in this novel, it could only be that person. It would be entirely in character. And she said, yeah, we pretty much all keep in character most of the time. And I thought,
smart.
Yeah, but it's hard in fiction.
Yeah. Boy, that's smart. And again, a bit intimidating. But if you really spend time with your characters and you know what they would say.
And you can't do it on first draft.
No. Well said. Okay, again, that is Man Alive with the exclamation point. So go get that if you haven't read it and study the heck out of it. I have two more questions for you before we leave away. And obviously, what's next?
What's next? Oh, I'm so glad you asked that, because I have an answer. And usually when people ask that, you're so in process for so long. I have a new novel that will be coming out in a year called American Ending. And this book, as every book should be or might be, is different from all that I've written. It's historical fiction, never done that, based on my family's immigrant experience as coal miners in southwestern Pennsylvania. So, Toni Morrison says, you don't see yourself in literature? Then it's up to you to create it. So these are Russian Americans who are old believers, Stariobratia of the Russian Orthodox faith, brought here to mine coal and sort of thrown down a hole in southwestern Pennsylvania. And the narrator is the first American born in the family. So she's very proud of that. And she thinks she's going to be treated differently and that people are going to recognize her as American. Yeah.
Doesn't happen.
Doesn't happen. I mean, what was stunning was one day I was typing and I typed 2017 instead of 1917, because this is a book about immigration, exploitation, labor, and a worldwide pandemic, and who gets to be an American citizen 100 years ago. Yeah. I was like, everything that's happened in America has already happened, and we've been putting blinders on and pretending that we don't need to know that.
The past isn't even the past.
The past isn't even the past. Is that Faulkner or is that you?
No, that's Faulkner. Let's say
Yay!
So American Ending, it'll be out in 2023.
Yes.
Can you tell us the publisher?
Yes, Blair. It's an independent publisher in North Carolina.
All right. And you will come back and talk about that just as it's coming into the world, and we'll make noise about it and everybody will go out and read it. When we talked, I'll confess, we talked long ago, not too long ago, as you were developing this, and I said, it's going to be your most important one yet. So let us all.
Oh, I hope that's the case.
Hope that I'm right. I'm normally right.
Yeah.
Okay. One last question, a craft question. I like to say there are a million things you have to learn when you're writing fiction, and you keep learning them. Everyone has advice. So, Mary Kay Zuravleff, what's the one thing out of all those millions of things that you would hold up to fiction writers and say, work on this? And I'm going to press you. I'm going to say, it can't be like a psychological thing, like, find time for yourself or something like this. I'm talking one craft, like hardcore. What's the one thing that you would hold up on? And again, I won't hold you to this. Next month you might change your mind, or a year from now you can change your mind. But today, in July of 2022, what would you say? Yeah, we should all just work on this no matter what.
Oh my goodness, John. One thing. Gosh, I think I'm a little stumped. Finish, because we get stuck in the middle, or we have a good idea and we can't see it through. So I would say finish something, beginning, middle, and end. That is a small piece of hard advice.
That is excellent. I'm glad that I pressed you. And in fact, the more you think about that, you might call that your mantra. How can you possibly know what to do with something until you get it finished? And then
you don't know how many drafts until you knew what your book was about.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I mean, at least a few. At least
Isn't that wild? It's wild. You think, I've been working on this a while. I should be able to tell you in 3 words, in 6 sentences, in a paragraph, in a tense. But you have to get to the end a couple times.
Wow. There it is. That's the quote. And I'm gonna spread that everywhere as we're rolling. You have to get to the end a couple times at least, and then you can start making some really hard.
Oh, I actually like that. I would actually say that is kind of a mantra.
Yeah, that's cool. There, you just experienced Mary Kay Zuravleff comes up with a mantra that may be the best thing that one can ever think or know or learn. So no one needs an MFA or anything like that. You just need to know that particular point. All right. So Man Alive. Oh, give us the title of your first 2 novels before we leave.
My first novel is called Frequency of Souls. It's about refrigerator designers and life after death, possibly, and what else? Refrigerators and the notion that life after death, people might be just to the left of public radio broadcasting. And then the second one is called The Bowl is Already Broken, and that is about an Asian art museum and a priceless Chinese bowl that goes tumbling down the marble steps. In the first sentence, John,
yes.
When the dust settled, there was only dust, and all the people gathered around who see its demise, and they have to fight for the museum's future.
So 3 novels in the world, 1 novel coming, and I hope you'll come back. Thanks for being here. I hope everybody goes and finds Man Alive at the very least, because I've been squawking about it. And then
thanks for squawking about it.
Look for American Ending in 2023 and come back again.
Thank you.
Thank you.